Today I'm going to be tier listing all of season 1 of Classic Who. That's the William Hartnell First Doctor era from 1963 to 1964. So I've already watched all of Classic Who, but I am going back and rewatching it at the moment because I wanted to make a scarf based on the Tom Baker 4th Doctor scarf, and I wanted to do that based on my ratings of each episode of the show. I didn't think it was fair to rate purely from memory alone, so I decided to rewatch the show and rate every episode fairly. I am making a series of shorts based on that, so if you do want to see the progress of that, they will probably be uploaded before this video even gets fully edited, so feel free to watch those if you want to see the progress of the scarf. Otherwise, if you're only interested in seeing what other people think about classic episodes, this tier list may be for you. So whilst I have been rating all the episodes with a numerical value, which I will share in this video as well, I wanted to do a tier list because I feel like tier lists are more vibe based. So I feel like it just gives a bit of a difference with how I review an episode of a TV show based on a tier list category rather than a number. So I will still share the numerical ratings I gave to each episode and the serial as a whole, and I will share some season stats at the end of the video just for funsies. So I've crafted this tier list myself and we have 6 tiers, which are... So starting at the bottom we have Skaro Sewers. I don't expect many episodes to be placed in this tier across all of Classic and New Who, but who knows. The next category is Doctor Who. Now this is mostly for episodes that I either completely forgot existed or I just don't remember them even though I've watched them multiple times. The next category is Wibbly Wobbly. Now this is the closest to a C category I have. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. There are some positives, there are some negatives. It's an okay episode. The next category is Upgrade in Progress, which is effectively a B category, and that's just for episodes that were really good, but not brilliant. They're not the best. I feel like there was missed potential, or they were enjoyable enough, just not perfect. The next tier is Fantastic, which is for any episode which is just a brilliant episode. Can't really fault it. And then we have our top tier, which is Ooh-wee-oo. And I will not be singing that every time. That is just for episodes that are best of the best. I absolutely love them regardless of if they do have any small faults. They're just brilliant episodes and I love them. And they scream Doctor Who to me. So that's all the tiers explained. Let's get into the actual tier list. So we start off with An Unearthly Child, which is obviously the first episode of Doctor Who ever. So An Unearthly Child earned an average score of 4, and these are the ratings I gave to each individual episode. This serial I think is overhated. Honestly, I wasn't so keen on it the first time I watched it, but that was my first introduction to Classic Who in general, with the black and white colouring and with the classic style. It was all very new and different, so obviously it was going to take me some time to get used to it. And now that I am used to Classic Who, rewatching it, I gave it much higher scores than I previously would have. My only issue with this serial in general is that it shows the Doctor in quite a bad light, and he very gleefully kidnaps Barbara and Ian. So, bit iffy. But the Doctor as a character doesn't really come into being who he will be later on until later on. So really this is more of an introduction to Susan, Ian and Barbara, the first TARDIS team, and I think it shows them quite well. So I think An Unearthly Child, I think I'm putting this into Fantastic. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but no. I think I'm putting it in Upgrade in Progress. It's not a perfect serial, but it did start the show as a whole. And I do think that it introduced the Doctor, the TARDIS team, the idea of time travel being a main part of the show. It introduced all those factors quite well, and it was enjoyable enough, you know. People tuned in afterwards to watch the next serial, and I rewatched the whole thing. Then again, I rewatched Space Pirates as well, so... And Space Babies, fucking hell. So yeah, I think it was a decent serial. So as well as tier listing every episode, I will also be picking out an MVP of each one. This will be a side character who stood out to me or did something really important which either progressed the plot or allowed the heroes to survive whatever it was they were going up against. It could just be an extra who gave a stellar performance. It could be someone who had a really pivotal role in the episode. Who knows? And the MVP of An Unearthly Child is her. So the next episode is The Daleks. I will be using the words episode and serial completely like as the same thing throughout this because it's just easier. So The Daleks is the first appearance of the Daleks, and it introduced us to alien worlds for the first time as well. And it's quite a pivotal episode, really, not just in history of the show with the Doctor versus the Daleks, but in general. This episode is a huge turning point in the show that kids started tuning in like crazy. And I can see why, but also I think it's a little bit long. I'm not a fan of the longer serials. There are some exceptions. But generally I'm not a fan of the longer ones. I just think that a story can be told in a bit shorter time. I'm used to the 45-minute episodes. So the Daleks also earned an average score of 4 overall, with these being the ratings for each episode. This may be controversial, but I'm also going to put the Daleks in upgrade in progress. It was a good serial, it was. I just didn't think it needed to be quite as long as it was. I feel like the story didn't require that length. And there will be loads of Classic Who fans who are against me on that, I'm sure. So I'm going to put in upgrade in progress alongside An Unearthly Child. I do think that Unearthly Child is overhated, and I think the Daleks is a bit overloved. So I'm just going to put it there. And the MVP of the episode is Ganatus. The next serial is The Edge of Destruction. Now this one was 2 parts, so not too long. And also it was all set entirely in the TARDIS. We didn't go back or forward in time, we didn't get to see an alien world, it was all entirely in the TARDIS and only featured the 4 main characters. And I thought it was genius, a brilliant episode. It was a weird psychological horror almost, kind of like a precursor to Midnight, really. It was great. I think it was bizarre and great, you know. Looking at it, I'd probably say it's the best episode of the season. I think I'm going to put it in fantastic. I can't really make a case for it going into UEU, so I think I'm going to put it in fantastic because it was a great serial, it delivered, and I loved it. I can't give an MVP for this one because there were no side characters. It was just the 4 main characters. So no MVP for the episode, but it was a really great serial. Next up is Marco Polo, another pure historical. This one earned a 4 as an average rating, and this is how. It's the first story that actually has missing episodes, and also the first story to be based around a historical figure. I did enjoy this one, I did. I think this episode gets a lot of hate, and I know that the missing episodes often do, just because you haven't got as much there to view, but I really liked it overall. I think it was good. It was a bit long though. It was a bit long, that's all I'll say. So I think, I don't know. I feel like putting it in Wibbly Wobbly because I don't know. This is why I want to do a tier list as well as the ratings, because on average it got a 4, but tier list wise I don't know how I feel about it as a whole. So I'm going to put it in Wibbly Wobbly for that one. I think it was good, I enjoyed it. When the pure historicals are a bit long, there's not as much there as when it's, for instance, the Daleks with an alien planet and other species and other places to explore. When it's a pure historical, there's not as much of that, so MVP of the serial is Ping Cho. Next up is The Keys of Marinus. Now, in my recollection, I thought I quite liked this one, but on a rewatch, as you can see from these episode scores, I didn't quite enjoy it as much. It's a very big mixed bag of episodes. Overall, it kind of feels like series 13 Flux, because there is an overarching story there, but each episode is so different in this serial that it just feels like their own stories with an overarching thing rather than a story that follows through every episode. So yeah, it kind of feels like Flux to me, kind of reminds me of that. So I'm going to put it in Wibbly Wobbly. I'm going to pop that in Wibbly Wobbly because I do think there were good parts to the serial and I did enjoy it, but it just wasn't there wasn't enough in there that was really good. It was mostly wibbly wobbly bits. MVP of the episode is Sabbatha. Next up is the Aztecs, which is another historical episode. So this one is the first story that tackles the concept of changing history and why it's bad to do that. And I do like that idea that that was explored so early on in the series. And I do appreciate that Barbara mentions in the episode, in the first episode, that the Aztecs were a really civilized people, but they did human sacrifice, and that put off foreign powers who conquered and colonized. So I do appreciate that acknowledgement in the very early episode of the show that older civilizations actually were civilized. With the histories that we have written down, it all seems like they weren't civilized at all, and the colonizers were the conquering heroes, except they weren't. So I appreciate that put in there already straight away in season 1. Later seasons and episodes of the show would be a bit more British Empire-y with regards to colonization, but this episode does explicitly state that older civilizations were actually civilized. And for that reason, I'm going to put it in upgrade in progress. I think it's a fun serial and it's a decent story as well, so it all works quite well together. Susan was kind of just not necessary to the whole thing, to be honest, but to be honest, I kind of find that with Susan a lot, that she's barely necessary to any of it, which is kind of MVP of the episode is Kamika. Next up is the Sensorites. Now, in my memory, this one was a brilliant episode and I absolutely loved it. On a rewatch, I wonder what I was on when I thought that. This one got an average rating of 3. And I'm gonna put it in wibbly wobbly. I already know that. I don't know. There's a lot of aspects I like about it. There's just not enough to keep me going throughout the whole serial. Yeah, I feel like it could have been condensed a lot. I feel like there was a lot of stuff in there that just didn't need to be, and it could have been condensed down. But I did like the overall story. I liked the fact that it shows Susan having heightened telepathic abilities, which never return. But I like that it shows that. Think about it, it doesn't, because it literally says in the episode that she won't be able to do that ever again. I think the Sensorites are an interesting species. I'd love for them to come back in the show at some point. Also, I'd just like to see how New Who would address the design of them, because I don't really see how that could be remade into a convincing New Who design. I love the design though. I do love the design. They look really fun. I do like their design. And the MVP of the Sensorites is First Elder. The final serial of season 1 is The Reign of Terror. This saw the TARDIS team going to 1794 Paris, and I really enjoyed this one. This one got a 4 overall, and I just found it really enjoyable. It was a good historical serial, and the story itself was interesting. Again, Susan didn't have much to do. I feel like that might be why she left when she did, is just because the character of Susan never had anything interesting to do. To be honest, I feel like the character of Susan was just there to give the Doctor a backstory, and that was it. She didn't do anything after that point. The Sensorites was the only time she had anything to do, and even then it kind of stopped pretty quickly. So anyway, The Reign of Terror is going to go into this might be controversial, but I'm going to put it in fantastic, because I did enjoy this one. I don't like the fact that there's so many that are a bit lower down, so I'm going to put it in fantastic. I did like the serial, I did like the story, and since we're basing all this on vibes anyway, it works. And the MVP of The Reign of Terror is Small Boy. And that is my tier list for season 1 complete. I think that's quite a fair tier list. It's a nice fair jumble. There's not too much in one category, so it makes it a nice even season. So I think that works. I did decide to do a best quote of the season. Some of the things that they say in Doctor Who are really inspirational, some are quite funny, some are just really thought-provoking. So my favourite quote of this season comes at the end of the very final serial, The Reign of Terror. It's the Doctor and Ian talking in the TARDIS as they're flying away from Paris. And the Doctor says, "Our lives are important, at least to us. But as we see, so we learn." And Ian says, "What are we going to see and learn next, Doctor?" And the Doctor says, "Well, unlike the old adage, my boy, our destiny is in the stars, so let's go and search for it." I just thought that was quite sweet. And I promised season stats. So these are the stats of the season. The most popular score of all the serials was a 4, and the season gets an average score of 3.36. So that's the tier list finished. Did you agree with any of my placements? Did you disagree with them? Have you watched much Classic Who? Thank you for watching, and I will see you when we rank season 2.